Hello and welcome back to Hotkeys Portugal. This week's episode is a special one. When it gets to the end of the year, it's good to reflect on the past 12 months, which for Phil and I have seen dramatic change. We've put together a few special episodes for you, of which this is the first, which show the progress we've made on our glorious tranquil piece of central Portugal. We're so proud of what we've managed to achieve and hope you'll find it fun to watch. Those of you who followed us from the start might remember some parts, but for any newcomers, this gives you a quick, well, relatively quick, whiz through and brings you up to date. If you enjoy it, we hope you'll subscribe and then perhaps dip back into the topics that interest you further. As always, we love receiving your feedback, so don't be shy to drop us a message.
So this behind me is what we've come to refer to as the tiny house. Really, for quite obvious reasons, there's one habitable room. There's a couple of bits which are ruined. One day they will become part of the new design for the guest house. But it's the only room in which we've been able to, since we've been here now for 12 months, it's the only room we've been able to make properly waterproof and comfortable enough to sleep in. It's the one room we can use during the warmer months to stay in. So let's go back and see where we started from, and we'll take a look around, see how it was, see what we've done to it, and we'll take you for a little tour.
We first walked through the door in September 23. Whilst it was full of rubbish and miscellaneous bits and pieces, there was already a sense that this tiny house had the potential to be something rather special.
Oh, the wine cellar, you're going to see the wine in the other place.
It was the first step towards building a new house and a real place to live here in Portugal. The biggest question, though, which took a whole lot of tea to answer, was where on earth do you start? As this room was the most complete structure on the plot, and therefore most likely to be useful for something, weatherproofing was the most important factor. And the big lack of a door seemed like the best starting place of all. After making good the blockwork surround, Phil then had to find something to put in it. So it was off over to the barn, but that had its challenges as well.
I found a bench in one of the other rooms, and this is some timber that's going to make up the door frames. Standard plain timber, but I've, as you do in this country, treated it with some cuprinol style wood treatment to ward off the bugs and the worms. Now this chest is interesting. It was under a lot of rain, but the timbers inside aren't half bad. And I reckon with a bit of work, those timbers could be repurposed to be one of the doors, probably on the tiny house. But that is a reuse of all that stuff. keys, yeah.
Your keys.
There we go.
Yeah.
Close is firm.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, we're good. All yours.
It was pretty obvious as soon as you walked into the room that the roof needed work. Over the oven, you could see daylight streaming in and tiles scattered around. There was clearly a hole. And if we take one of our first drone flights and look across, you can see there are missing tiles on the ridge. And if we go a little bit further on, there's a hole next to the chimney. That clearly needed to be fixed. It was now springtime. With some clear days ahead, Phil stripped out the tiles around the hole and inevitably found some rotten timbers, which he replaced. There's a new rafter in there, and he also put some battens across. It was basically a case of replacing a segment of the roof structure so that it could be recovered with tiles. If we examine a bit more closely, you can also see some of these slightly dodgy cracks in the chimney. It took a day or two, but Phil finally got everything into place, and this shot gives you an idea of the extent of the tiles that had to go in. And another look at that chimney, but that's a job for another day. And again, if we look at it from above, you can see the ridge tiles with some fresh mortar holding them down. You can also see the mortar forming some flashing. It's not perfect, and there's still going to be a bit of a puddle by the chimney, but it'll do for now.
So if you go in and get up the ladder,
Okay.
and sort of poke around that top corner. Right. You see anything coming in?
Nothing in yet. Yeah, I can see where it's coming in. One tile joint. When we talk about the tiny house, we mean the room with the roof plus the two enclosures next to it. At the start, all of it was massively overgrown. You can see from the road that the ivy had grown up the outside, but in the enclosures, nature had completely taken over. On the left here, you can see an oleander bush. It was way too big and had to come out. One of the first things Phil did was to take a chainsaw to it. He didn't get all of it out, but you can see the stump here. Alongside it, there's a giant willow tree and a big old olive. The olive looks sad and straggly, but hopefully we can get it back into shape. The base of the first enclosure here is a complete mess of greenery. And worse than that, if we take a little move over to the right, we'll see inside what was once a kitchen. But the roof and everything has all collapsed in and so deeply overgrown that it's inaccessible at the moment. We'll get to it in due course. First job though, after the oleander, was to make the willow tree a little bit safer so that it didn't threaten the roof of the tiny house. And the amount of cuttings from the two trees, well, that would all have to be cleared away as well. Lots of heavy lifting today. All this chair. It's going to take a while. Around this entrance, I'm trying to find where the ground is. You want to carry some of it to Jolly? What we found on the floor was such a combination of stuff. There was terracotta blocks, there was smashed up roof tiles, bits of metal, roof timbers, chipboard. It did seem like there had been some living accommodation of some sort in there. But it had all collapsed, got tied up in brambles and ivy, and rotted down to form a tangled mat. So it all had to be moved away by hand. And guess whose job that was? Oh, I'm trying to wade my way through decades of undergrowth and try and find my way to the back of this room. Managed to reach the floor in a couple of places, so there is a concrete base underneath all of this, but there's a hell of a lot of tile and tijolo and matted stuff and brambles and everything else. So it's hard going. A bit hot.
Time for a cup of tea.
Absolutely.
Do you think this side is the best place to start?
Mm-hmm.
Main sheet for the dining room. We've had a lot of rain in the last few days in central Portugal, and it's a good chance to see how the tiny house is standing up to the damp and just what we've got to do to make it habitable for the future. So this is the back wall, and what we can see is some damp that's come in through the wall in that bottom back corner, but otherwise it's not done too badly. There's a wood ceiling missing in parts, but that's going to have to come down, so that's job for today. But otherwise, looking out through the doorway, and it's a beautiful day. It's been raining all morning, but the forecast is better for this afternoon, so fingers crossed. So end of day, and we've got a nice big pile of roofing timbers. That's the ceiling from the tiny house. And if I back in, we can see what is looking like a rather lovely roof. But generally, that looks a bit alright.
At the end of winter and during the early spring of 2024, we had some pretty continuous and quite powerful rainstorms. These exposed some of the weaknesses in the tiny house drainage. With a bit of digging and excavation, we discovered that there was already a concrete runoff gully by the side of the road. It should help protect the house, but as you can see, there's an awful lot of water flowing when it does rain. Most of the rain, or so we hope, seems to run straight past the house, but we still need to take some steps to protect it from the worst of the damp.
And the newly discovered gutter seems to be earning its keep. You see the water running down there on the lower side a bit, a foot or so away from the wall, so that's working well. If you look up, no guttering on there, but it's dripping away from the house, and that should help us a great deal. So this is where the wall was originally damp. So this wall goes out to the road, and you can see then there's a sort of area that was damp. That's now dry. Happy with that. But this wall is the one that goes inside the property up along by the hard standing. And if we get in close, you can see there's about a foot, 30 centimetres of damp wall, and I left a couple of cardboard boxes there in the last few weeks, and I've just pulled one of them out, and it is wet on the bottom, so that shows the water is coming in. So if we can get the water management on the outside right, that should dry up, especially over the next few months. We've only got limited rain now coming, but we want to make sure we get it properly set up for when the rains come later again in the year. And so that's an essential part of getting the tiny house fit for use.
So I set to again with the trusty enshada and tried to clear away what had been a flower bed that got banked up against the wall above floor level. That was the first bit of soggy stuff. Then there was what was effectively a sponge of vegetation, like a carpet of very wet stuff that was in front of it, sitting on top of the concrete. And all of it combined to cause the water to collect against the wall in front of the tiny house. It was doing it no good whatsoever.
So this is where we got to eventually. The trench in the clay. And that's the concrete hard standing we've been parking the car on up until now. Pile of clay. We're probably going to have to work something out to drain, because from that gate is where any drainage, any water that's on the road above the house is going to come down through that gate and then drain down this way. And ideally we want to make sure it comes down this way and not comes down this way, because this way comes towards the house and we'll end up in the little gully that we've just spoken about there. Comes down into the gully. So we'll try and avoid that if we possibly can. Might need to put another concrete gutter, and then the challenge then will be to find a way to drain that conveniently onto the pathway or into the garden space beyond. Bit of planning needed, and looks like a bit of construction too. So this is the roadside window of the tiny house. Both of them are pretty rubbish. The shutters are a bit manky, but they're recoverable, I think. And inside the window is, in this case, pretty much missing. In the other case was, you know, half gone. So we've got some UPVC to put in their place. They're going to be almost their standard size UPVC, which means I've got to put a bit of padding in the sides to just get them to the right for the existing window frame. But job today is to get this off, get the window frame, or get the window out, replace it with the UPVC with a bit of padding in between, and then reassemble and reset the shutter so that from the road it looks just the same as it was when we started. And then, you know, no change, no problem. So weirdly, that canopy is nailed in. No idea how they would have got a hammer in behind to hit that in. And I think I've got a better plan. It's a Phil plan, it might be better. Be easier for Phil to do. So get cleaned everything up, measure it up and see what we've got to do to get the window in place. So this is the standard window. It's a standard size, 1 metre by 1 metre, bought from the big box store just in the city nearby. Challenge you've got is that this is a 70mm depth of the frame, and if we come over to the frame, the pre-existing frame, that is a lot less. That's around about, quick check, 35. So that's about 35. So the game plan is to pack it out from here deeper so that we've got a bigger frame. I can screw it in that way. This is very substantially fitted to the wall, so I can put something on here to pack it out that will allow me to screw into there from the window frame. So in the spirit of reusing what I can find around the place, I've got a piece of deck board that I've retrieved and an OSB packer. And if I can run those up side by side, I can extend the frame deep enough. That now gives me .75mm, just over. So therefore the window frame can go in there just nicely and will sit. The only other remaining thing is that the width is about 20mm, the aperture is about 20mm wider. So what I'm probably going to have to do, I don't have any 10mm sheet other than the OSB, and I don't really want to use that in an exposed face. So I've got some 20mm, which is coming from the old chest that I recovered for the door. Rip down some 20mm and make the place weather tight and secure again. Propped in for the first time in the new frame. If we go inside, we have a slot there for the blind tape. Good fit down the one side there. If we come across, got a gap of about 10mm. So I'm wondering whether some of the ceiling toe and groove that we took down from the ceiling here could be cut and fit to pack that out. Let's take a look. A little bit of silicone in to seal those edges, and I think that's a result. No, I'm happy with that. got to feed the tape through.
Yeah.
Slot there. And then hold up the base so get it roughly level. And I'll screw in the foot holes. I'm going to take that side.
Yes, I will.
We get that through. Check. If anything, can yours go up at all, your side? That's better. Good. Right. Now what we've got to do is do the mechanism.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful Sunday, and so a bit unlike in the UK, we don't hear the sounds of lawnmowers and power tools. It's very, very quiet here on a Sunday. You can hear behind me the birds singing, occasionally the dogs in the next door farm. But so it's a choice of doing some slightly more quiet things. Certainly no power tools on a Sunday. We've learned that. So we find the work that we can do manually. Jane's already moving a few tiles around. That's about as much noise as we're going to make all day. So rather than leave her to it, I better get on and see what I can do to help. Jane's still full on at it in the new clean space. So much better even from yesterday. Starting to have a few ideas about what we can use this for as time goes by, and I've got to get out of the way, otherwise I'm in deep
Face full of soil. I've got a new path.
Good work. But I think the sun is going down. I think it's time for a bit of a refresh. What do you think?
Absolutely. 1 o'clock.
Sounds good. Let's go. And this is where Jane's got to today on clearing out the little side room. Fantastic this is. And you consider what that was like before. This is just an amazing transformation.
Very necessary water.
There you go.
I needed that.
That's what clearing does to you.
One sweaty blob, yes. I've been trying to just clear some of the great piles of broken tiles that we've got. Admittedly, I haven't tackled that huge one yet, because he's a beast, but I have managed to clear the pile at the back of the tiny house dining room, where we're going to put the gazebo up, hopefully maybe later today. And I've also not moved that lot yet, that's next on the pile, and cleared away the stack of relatively whole tiles that was cluttering up this entrance to the kitchen. So those have all now been moved over to near the wall in nice neat piles to be reused at some point. Once we'd got the enclosure cleared, we worked out what we wanted to do with the space. Top priority involved making a covered space where we could eat and drink. We were desperately short of shade. Thankfully, we had a gazebo on hand. What follows is a very edited down version of the slightly comedic attempts to put it up without having read the instructions. You just squeeze that up and squeeze that in tight. So I might need to stand on the bottom while you put that into it.
I think you sure?
Yeah. And I remember I had to pull down before. This did go on for quite some time, but we'll draw a veil over that. Instead, we'll cut straight to the much clearer, tidier aftershot. It's now a rather lovely place to have a shaded lunch on a sunny afternoon.
Priority job at the moment then is to get the inside of the tiny house settled and sorted out so that we can be able to sleep here next week. And at the moment it's a bit full of rubbish. There's cobwebs and nails and all sorts of things hanging off the roof and rafters, and debris and stuff on the floor. So we're going to do a couple of things today. Oh, the other thing is the main roof beam, the main ridge beam, I suspect still has a bit of a leak above it. So the timber's a bit dark there. I wonder whether that's been soaked into in the recent rains. So I'm going to get up and have a look at that. Possibly make have another go at weatherproofing the ridge. But one way or another, get all of this rubbish out of here. Ideally, we'll give it a sweep out, but ideally we've got a jet wash. Trouble is, the jet wash is a 2 kilowatt unit, and on the EcoFlow we've only got 1 kilowatt of output, so that's going to be a generator job. And of course, being Sunday, don't really want to run a petrol motor on a Sunday morning. It's so quiet around here on the Sunday, so respecting the local community and the traditions, I'll keep that until tomorrow. In these conditions though, we've got lovely weather. It's gonna, if we do jet wash in here, it'll dry out in minutes, and we'll be able to see a lot better what we've got to deal with. Yeah, Let's crack on. I'm going to wait on that. So the time has come to get started on making up the bed frame. So I've started to lay out all the stuff I've got. The basis of it are going to be these. These are the sprung slats. These come from IKEA, and so they're the standard sort of length and width. So I've got to make the bed frame to go around the mattress, but to be able to support those in between the runners. So got the timber delivery the other day. So we've got some 150 by 25. That's going to make up the side panels. There's some 50 by 75, which will go inside those to provide the ledge onto which these things will rest. There is a lump of 75 thick, which I'm going to rip down to give me some 75 by 75 square legs. And that's about it really. It's quite a simple, should be quite a simple build. Cut it up, sand it down, treat it with the wood treatment, and knock it together. And with luck and a fair wind, that'll make a much more comfortable bed frame for a better night's sleep all round. Much brighter morning this morning, so now we can work properly outdoors. Time to get on with the bed frame. This is the sanding station. So to make some what is fairly rough cut timber, turn it into something a little more touch sensitive for furniture. So gonna have a go this morning. Just got a belt sander to do the rough stuff. That's got an 80 grit belt on it, and then the orbital sander, that's got 120 grit just to finish it off and smooth. down the centre. So I run one down there. Can you lift this one and slide it under? Okay. There we go. And we'll do the same on the other side. Right. Back this morning with clear blue skies. Not yet 10 o'clock, but we've got already about 24 degrees. It's going to be another warm one today, so we'll get the work in outdoors where we can. And I'm back on the nearest I've got to a large flat assembly surface. Here we are with the main outside beams of the bed laid out. First job this morning is to get the corners matched up and secured, then flip it over, get the legs on it. Once we've got the legs on it and we've got it set for square, then we can paint it with the wood preserver, leave that through the hottest part of the day, and then finish it off this afternoon, ready for hopefully for use this evening. Should be good.
Okay, you might. I think so. On your one here. Right, and inside you can just find it.
So we're in. That's not bad.
More than not bad.
So we need to come a little
A
bit
little bit to you.
towards me.
It's a bit tight.
really trying to use some of the resources we got on the farm. On the bed head, I've drilled with a 8mm drill to the recessed holes. And what I want to do is plug with a timber plug to fill those holes. And rather than go down the store and buy commercial dowels or anything else, we've got around the place, if you look, loads and loads and loads of cut olive twigs, and with a bit of work they can be stripped of the bark. So here's one. Find them, set the depth gauge just to the 8mm hole, just to the 8mm. It's a little bit wider, which means I can take off the bark, comes off relatively easily, and then go through it with a piece of sandpaper and basically keep trying it until it fits or it doesn't fit. And that's the result. Not invisible because they are different wood, but they are at least a nice finish. Taking the sanding down so that they are flush, but also the scribe marks, the pencil marks for the drill holes. So you can see the difference on the ones I've not yet done. So they've come off using the multi-tool saw. They come off pretty flat, but there's still a bit of glue seeped out, and the pencil marks, I'll go through all of those, but I think that's not a bad finish. There's something rather nice about using something you found lying around the farm, tones in with the knots and the other blemishes on the main timbers. I just think they look rather gorgeous. So for the finish on the bed head, we've got 2 layers of the bug treatment on there already. That's given it a little bit of a tint with the chestnut version of that, the bug cleaner, the bug protector. Keeping with the natural textures and so on, we're going to use some linseed oil, apply it by brush, going with the grain to get it into the pores, and then scrubbing it off with the microfiber cloth. Quite thirsty, this wood. It soaks in very, very well. The brush is a lot easier when you've got this slatted construct. It's a lot easier with a brush than trying to put it on with a cloth. And after a bit of hot and sticky fitting and fixing, that is the bed head now in place. And it supports the mosquito net a whole lot better. Really pleased with that.
Wow, that was certainly a bit of nostalgia. But where does that leave us at the end of the first year? We now have a small space that's dry and comfortable enough to sleep in, at least in the warmer months. It may not be exactly pretty, but it does have power and light, so we can work there and even watch a bit of TV and YouTube at the end of a long day's work. What is clear though is that there's still plenty more to do, so we hope you'll all keep following along in 2025. There are 2 more compilation episodes on the way, as well as further adventures on turning our ramshackle Kinta into a dream home.
Well, after all of that, it's been a lovely year and Christmas is here again. And what better place than to sit under an orange tree and to wish you all a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, wherever you are and whatever you're doing. Thanks for all your support.
Thank you.